Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another HYDRA AI Castover. This one is going to be using the first mission of my full toilet submission, a mission pack, if you will. That doesn't really have much of a story. It's called Uprust Creek. The premise is that Ahmed is constipated because he can't poop, his toilet is too full, and not only that, but his pipes are rusted. So plumber Raphael teams up with Ahmed's favor. He calls in a few favors, okay, and that's who you, the player, are. And there's no dialogue because I didn't get that far in development, to be honest. But that's the premise, and you gotta beat HYDRA into submission 3 times, and the United End Directorate comes in to also be in the map series and to turn every map into a free-for-all. So there's that. Enjoy that. Okay, so with the premise out of the way, why am I using this as a vehicle for a HYDRA AI Castover? Because not only does it use the HYDRA new game state, but honestly, the maps were made in about like less than a week, I believe. And obviously Full Toilet lasted 3 months. The rest of development, when it wasn't being spent on deliverance levels that didn't end up seeing the light of day anyway, Veek and I collaborated on a lot of changes for the HYDRA new game state. And of course, HYDRA as well was a big contributor there. And DF helped me with a lot of visual effects and porting some stuff from other areas and getting some, essentially like using still images of individual projectiles and turning them into actual projectiles using 3D modeling techniques. So yeah, really cool stuff, honestly. Really leveled up the general visual fidelity of the project. And it boasts sound effects data extender now. It's got a work in progress portrait data extender that I have not leveraged just yet. We're still getting there. But there is a lot of progress that has been made in the last 3 months. And a lot of that has been with the game state. And so that's what I'm going to show you guys today. It's a bit of a sneak peek before this patch goes live. Now, that being said, we don't really have too much else to say here. As a brief sort of note before we get in, I should mention that the big deal here, the biggest like far-reaching global change that has happened, beyond having 24 new units and I think 8 or 9 new structures, is the fact that upgrades now affect all units. So there's no infantry weapons, vehicle weapons, ship weapons. It's just Terran weapons and Terran armor. And there's Zerg weapons, or Zerg attacks and Zerg carapace. There's Protoss weapons and Protoss armor and Protoss shields. We've got 7 upgrades in the entire project. That's crazy to think about. But it allows you to mix and match compositions a lot better. And it really just levels up the general feel of how the game is played. Like, honestly, it feels so natural to play the game now. In a way that really, it's one of those changes that I don't think you realize how epic it actually is until you actually play with this environment. So I'm encouraging everybody to check this campaign, this mission pack out, and tell me what you think of the HYDRA changes. Within the next couple of days, the patch itself will go live, so you can always check it out without needing to play these maps. The AI is replaced, so I don't guarantee that the AI is going to work properly in a context where you just boot up a regular old melee map or whatever. But at least in these maps, I can guarantee that I haven't had issues playing the actual product, so there's that. And we'll see what else ends up happening. But yeah, with that being said, I'm really excited to show you guys what is in store here. So that'll do it for our intro. We're just going to get right into it. If I'm tabbed in correctly, of course. So we're doing this in multiplayer so that I can jump into the observer slot. I have not configured a special version of this map like I have with the Terran missions. So I can't really just decide, hey, I'm going to play it in single player. So you had to bear with me for the countdown. We have a Protoss AI as the user select player slot. So the player slot, generally speaking, there are no restrictions as to what the player can pick. They can pick Terran, Zerg, or Protoss in every single one of the 3 maps. So one of the major benefits to this is that you basically just get to decide what you want to see the changes on the most. We do have a website now, fraudsclub.com. You can check that out for the Terran tech tree. There's an interactive tech map designed by DF. DF. Sorry, I was thinking of everybody other than DF. It's designed by Veek, a guy named Adam, who's also from Poland, who has no relation to Veek. Also came in to help out with some concepts and stuff. And then obviously Balethal more recently came in and did some work alongside that. And then we were able to get it live thanks to Veek's contributions. So, you know what? I'll say thanks to DF as well, even though he didn't do anything for the site. But whatever. Thanks, DF. So we do have a gateway opener here, as you can see, for this Protoss build. The Protoss player, if you're observing a match and the Protoss AI has taken over, it's always going to be the Legion playstyle. the gateway build the gateway personality Legion build. So check that out. Meanwhile, we've got Raphael as the Terrans. Him and the Protoss are a tag team duo. And this guy goes racks into factory. I don't know what his end game looks like, but it's probably a mix of bio and vehicle. I think he leans heavier on vehicle later on. If we scroll to the bottom of the map, we'll see the ever-present United End Directorate, UED Commander, and his buddy, the Enslaved, over here, his pet Zerg brood. They're hanging out, and UED is going to be 2-port Wraith, and I think this guy's 3-hatch Flood. I know he's a Zergling or melee style, like swarming style AI, so he's going to do like ground units and mutas and stuff. Meanwhile, over here, we've got Highquare. It's Highquare because he's saying hi, because it's the first map. Not because he's chilling with the Hierophant, if you know what I mean. But he's going to be doing some general gateway into robotic stuff. The AI, I've noticed, doesn't really use the robotic stuff to the same degree that I would like them to, unfortunately. But that is something that I can debug a little bit later on. Protoss are probably the most different now compared to what they used to be. Like, you get shuttles and observers from the Nexus now, and they require a Forge, but Forge costs gas and takes longer to build. Cybernetics core costs gas. Like, a lot of stuff is very, very different. So we don't have a tech map yet for Protoss or for Zerg. The Zerg one is work in progress, so it's coming. Protoss one has not yet been started. I'm also not 100% sure about the Protoss changes, and I think a lot of those will be changed. I don't know if it'll be, more different than it currently is at this stage. Like, I don't know if it'll change before we jump ahead and move on to the actual patch dropping. Like, I don't know if the version you're seeing now in this full toilet submission is going to be the same version as you see when the patch drops. There's probably going to be some changes there. But I'm fairly confident that we're going to see some pretty wild shit happen, is all I'll say there. So the Principality has been deployed. That means Legionnaires can now start coming out. And we got to hope that good old UED Commander can drop a couple Wraiths out here so that he can deflect this attack, especially since the Marines are no longer alone. There are a couple Zealots going over here, but it looks like they're going to pivot over here and get killed by Zerglings. I don't know what's going to happen there. We do have a Cyclops out. This is a new unit, sort of a relatively weak. Oh, that's... You hate to see that because you could just kill the Marine in one hit. There you go. You figured it out. But yeah, Cyclops is essentially this crowd-controlling unit. He's not going to be showing off his passive in that particular context because he sucks. But usually what happens is when a unit dies to a Cyclops, they will blow up, dealing AoE damage in a small radius around them. It has to be a kill, though. It's not something that like stacks up over time. So you got to keep that in mind. You got to deal the finishing blow with those units. We do have some Zerglings departing this realm, I think at a rough time. But it does look like they'll be able to clean up some of the melee warriors of the skirmishers, if you will. But this attack has been pulled. The trigger has been pulled on this, and they are going to be targeting something. I'm not sure what. Meanwhile, we do have some red units gathered around this ramp. See you later, Dragoon. It's nice knowing you. Going to do my best to keep up with all of the happenings. A couple Wraiths poking out as well. A couple Zealots just passing by. It's not really ships in the night because they walked right past each other, but the AI doesn't know about that yet. And indeed, these Legionnaires have been able to sick them. Jump straight onto the command center over here, and it did get destroyed. Looks like the starport is next under attack, and these Wraiths are still getting occupied, trying to harass Blue, it seems. A couple of Zealots jumping the gun over here. A couple of Dragoons on the high ground as well. Those high ground changes implemented by Veek some time ago. This was also in the middle of full toilet development when that happened. This build is incredibly greedy by the U player. The user selector. But it looks like it'll pay off for him for now. He's able to help his ally riposte. Not as helpful as he really ought to be, but he's continued to put UED Commander in the ground. He's going to clean up this bunker that's, of course, very helpless and not very impactful. We do have a Sunken and a couple of Lings down here, so this should get cleaned up, because remember, Legionnaires are very vulnerable. But still, has the potential to pull a few rotations, maybe demand some drones or larvae that could be drones, and maybe even go a little bit higher as well. I mean, Legionnaires are really good against buildings, so they might actually get a couple of drone kills here, especially if they're able to isolate that way. Counting 2 drones dead now. There's a third. We're going to see even more. This whole mineral line is going to be a massacre. We switch gears just to check up what's going on over here on this side of the fence. Dangerous location to be in if you're iQuare, as we do indeed have a massing up of not only Terran but also Protoss units. It looks like top team might be running away with this victory here. We do have, as a response to this aggression, we do have a bunch of hatcheries going up. And unfortunately, he just doesn't have his ally ready to help him out here. With that expansion denied, it's looking pretty grim for the bottom team. And not only that, but your main is now being denied. If they lose the Evo Chamber, that's pretty rough too. Evo Chambers do cost gas now. These Zealots are staying alive for so long just on the basis of the fact that they have the shield regen, and they're not being prioritized. Now bear in mind as well that they do get that cumulative bonus from attacking the same target, and it looks like they're going to be leveraging that to win out over here as well. We do have a single cloaked Wraith over here, but this expansion in the top right on the ice will be denied. Raphael will not be able to deploy there. It's you know, kind of a at what cost scenario though, because he's pretty likely to lose these units. Ecclesiast looking anime. Now the Illusion Chamber will go down on the other side. We finally have picked off all but 2 of the Legionnaires, one of which has 10 kills, the other has 13. Don't hold your breath on those 2 going down either, because the very slow pull of Zerglings. The AI is just really stupid at defending itself. I'm not really sure what the cause of that is. A couple of Spider Mines might spell doom for this very, very small hit squad, but what's really going to spell doom for iQuare is the giant amount of men in his base. He doesn't appear to have any units anywhere else, and at this point, these units are unlikely to go anywhere. Yeah, there they go. They'll go meet a Dune or some other cringe fanfiction comment. It does look like we've been able to finally repost the Legionnaires in the bottom, but there's another wave where that came from. Oof. Looks like this attack force engaged at some point and even wiped out this expansion for Raphael. Could be in dire straits, but I'm not counting anything out of the question just yet, for top team especially. It just doesn't make any sense to worry about that, bearing in mind that we have a situation where this guy is still on 1 base. UD Commander's finally finishing his command center again. He does have a considerable force here, and a lot of it is in the air, so he should be able to push this force back. But we're seeing 3 bases go up for the U player, and his force over here has still not been silenced by iQuare. It does look like iQuare will be calling it quits relatively soon, especially if this Nexus ends up going down following this. Look at the attack pattern goes down there. We do have some Legionnaires being chased around the map, and it does look like they are now going to be sitting here waiting to be repaired, because they were all tagged once by a Dragoon, which is, of course, the AI's worst nightmare, and they will now immediately try to rectify that. Multiple hatcheries going down, a HYDRA den finally going down as well. Just 1 mining base with no geyser for our Zerg player on the bottom. Enslaved, forgetting how to Jaberino anything. Unsurprising. You are supposed to stick as many workers as possible on gas if you need it. Sometimes AI fails to remember that. Observer scouting out over here. iQuare trying to gather some information. I don't know what good it's going to do him, but you know, gotta look. It's still a benefit for the Wraiths to cloak, because they do get faster attack speed when attacking ground targets. So even if they are revealed, it's still pretty beneficial. And it does look like the heavy hitters of this force are going to get cleaned up as a result, but it also looks like there's been an attack on the other side. A rather well-fortified bunker over here, and a silver lining of them losing some production structures on this side, that UD Commander will be able to start considering this base for expanding again if this starport ends up going down. If not, it will technically count as occupied, even though it's not really occupied. And the Wraith count here is getting rather dangerous at this point. We still do not have any armories in sight, which is probably an oversight on the AI script side of things as opposed to anything else. But as a result of that, we are going to see a very weak individual strength of the Wraiths themselves. But it shouldn't mean the end for too much, I don't think, because at this point, we've even had a bit of a resurgence for the Zerg. Some map control being able to be claimed. Ichor still soaking up a lot of attention and rebuilding a Nexus over here. Meanwhile, this poor guy seems to be lost. Raphael still on 2 bases, managed to rebuild his other spot. He's got a Savant sticking it out on the top right, trying to mass up some units over here by his expansion and make sure that it stays protected and doesn't die again. Meanwhile, more Legionnaires pouring into the mineral line of UAD Commander. They might grab an SCV. Indeed, they will. But both of them are pretty wounded, so they will be going down to the Wraith Pursuance. Meanwhile, I'm just seeing a bunch of Dragoons bullying a bunch of Wraiths. Some things never change. Another hatchery going down for the Zerg player might soon be canceled. We will see. Some Hydras out. Don't know how useful those will be. No Sunkens. And it does look like this Zealot force may indeed get stopped in its tracks. I should say Legionnaire force. There's only a couple of rows with this group. But it could be a case of the never-ending death onslaught of just a couple of units. Got to remember that as well, because that is something that happens quite often. That being said, there are a decent number of Hydras out. Take a little bit more punishment. 18 kills, 19 kills on the Legionnaire. He might go for a drone and say, give me 20. A lot of drones coming out of that rotation, though, and that should mean that we have a pretty healthy economy for the Zerg player if they can stay alive. Remember, Raphael has been mostly untouched. Still no armories spinning. Well, one armory spinning. But still no armories. They haven't spun enough just yet. And no second armory in sight either. Definitely something that whoever wrote this stupid AI needs to take a look at. Now, the sheer number of Marines plus the Observer from the allied player means that I do think top team should be able to take this victory, no matter how many Wraiths this player still has. And of course, he is massing up over here still. Maybe he forgot that he had Wraiths. I don't know. AI does seem to be quite forgetful, quite sleepy. But it does seem like these Wraiths will be dropping like flies. Now, again, they can't really get across this bridge very easily. And if we have any assistance from the Zerg player, we might be able to slow them down long enough for another rotation of Wraiths to come in. But I don't think it matters when you have this many Zealots and Legionnaires. Just look at the sheer number of men that are pouring across the other side. And no base over here set up just yet for UAD Commander means he really is just stuck on the 2 mining bases, which is going to dwindle to 1 mining base effectively, especially with all of these units descending upon them. So it really just comes down to what ends up coming out of the Zerg player. And what do we see when we look? Just a million drones, of course. Another goofball move by the AI. Whoever wrote that is an idiot. I think that's been a long-standing issue that I haven't been able to fix, to be honest. Don't fully remember. Oh yeah, shout out to June 3 Hong for making all of these wireframes for the custom units that you're seeing. With the exception of like the Cyprian, which was made by DF, the Shaman was also made by DF. But a lot of these units simply wouldn't have wireframes without the assistance. Units and buildings just would be very, very goofy. Go ahead and capture this screenshot for our dear viewers on the Discord server that are going to be looking at this before the video goes live. It's quite the sight to behold. Top team winning. You know, just exactly what you want to see when you're playing as well, so I hope to see that. Surely there aren't going to be another rotation of drones after this. Let's see what happens. 1 Overlord. Okay, some Zerglings. I like what I'm seeing. It's not workers. That's always nice. Now, a full tier 1 arsenal of upgrades from the Protoss player. They are the most well upgraded out of all players. In fact, we don't even seem to have a rebuilt evolution chamber. Oh, we do. It's over here. It's just not doing anything. Classic. And we do have 1 tier armor for the Terrans, for Raphael. Meanwhile, still no upgrades to the end of time, of course, for UAD Commander. With his 1 SCV, his 1 Wraith, and his 1 depot. What else does he have? No, he's got 2 depots. And another Starport, actually. So that's pretty cool. Oh, and another Wraith. Check it out. Bullying some more Dragoons. Well, it's a Pyrrhic victory, but he'll take it. And as the disco balls continue, the ever-dancing Legionnaires, more than happy to oblige. Finally pick off that extractor. Major target, of course. It looks to be over for the home team. Well, what can you say? Saw a couple of the changes, but really it's only a sneak peek. Nobody really got to late game, and that's somewhat to be expected given the nature of the scale of the maps. Ghosts have lobotomy mines, not spider mines. Oh, now you'll start to upgrade. Of course you will, you goofball. So as you can see, there's still some very obvious deficiencies for the AI. Sometimes expansion logic isn't the smartest. Sometimes the issues come from building placement, of course. Classic move. And sometimes it's just not defending when they could prevent a lot of losses from doing just that. Other times, it's a million drones being queued up at once, which is a bug we still can't really seem to figure out. And still other times, it's a problem of them not upgrading. Some of these issues are a lot easier to resolve than others. But the game state itself is much more complete than it used to be, and I'm quite excited about the possibility of jumping a little bit further far forward in an attempt to, just in general, offer a more complete picture of what an RTS game state could be. So with that said, we have failed to achieve victory, but really we won, because we got to see the HYDRA AI in action and laugh at how goofy sometimes they were. Check that out. And I hope you appreciated this little insight into HYDRA's development. Obviously, a ton of more units have been added, and like I said, fraudsclub.com for at least the Terran side of the interactive map as of the time of recording. So check that out. And if you have any thoughts on some of the new additions or some of the things you saw here or some of the points that I made or some of the ideas that I talked about, leave them in the comments below. I'll catch you guys next time on the next one of these videos. Until then, take care of yourselves.